On 5 News tonight, more heavily armed police on London's streets, passengers rescued from a burning plane, and the £61 million lottery family. Semi-automatic weapons and face masks, but will officers like this make us safer? And would they reassure you?
We've all seen the news, we've all seen what happened in Nice, we've all seen what's happening in Paris, Belgium, Germany. People know that's happening, and that worries them. I think they want to be reassured the British police are ready.
Also, drama at Dubai airport as a passenger jet crash lands and explodes. 24 Britons are among the hundreds on board who are rescued, plus 61 million reasons to celebrate, especially for the Welsh mum recovering from cancer.
I just felt like I'd cheated death in a way. I just feel so lucky.
Also on the show is flossing all it's cracked up to be. As new research says it might not be that beneficial, we'll be getting a dentist's advice. And meet Team Refugee, the athletes competing in Rio after fleeing their war-torn countries. Welcome to 5 News Tonight. I'm Danny Sinha. If you visit London or live in the capital, you're going to see a lot more armed police on the streets, 4 times as many. It's because of the recent terror attacks in other parts of Europe, a threat which the Metropolitan Police Chief says will be foolish to ignore. Other areas in England, Wales and Scotland can also expect to see more police officers carrying weapons. Julian Drucker has this report.
They are armed to deal with the dangerous. Hundreds more of these SAS-style elite officers are to patrol the busiest streets of our nation's capital. The Metropolitan Police says the increase isn't due to any specific warning of terror, but a response to Europe's spate of bloody attacks. This officer, who we can't name, told me he's prepared for the very worst.
No one gets to operate at this level without a degree of experience. I can't say what threat we're going to face, but I can say that we'll be determined in how we approach that, and we'll be fast in our response, and we'll deal with it to the best of our capability and training allows us.
The Met says using motorbikes to tackle terrorists will help bring that faster response. But will the sight of 600 extra specialist officers end up alarming the people they're protecting?
Do you think members of the public will be reassured or even perhaps scared if they see this kind of thing?
You've always got this dilemma, haven't you? If you say nothing about it, you appear complacent. You're doing all these things you don't tell us as members of the public. If we tell people, you say, well, how does that make them more worried? I think it's the right time to reassure.
A further 900 firearms officers will be deployed across England and Wales, while Scotland will get an extra 90. But it's at Britain's biggest landmarks where fears of an attack are more heightened. Yet only some at the London Eye today welcomed additional armed officers.
I think people would feel more secure if there was a police presence and it was obvious.
The more the better, the safer you feel. The more presence, they're showing that they're on our side, I guess.
This is such a lovely space, having people in uniforms, I think that would diminish it.
It looks more like an action movie than a police training exercise. But here, counter-terrorism officers are patrolling the Thames. On water and on land, it's a show of strength from the country's biggest police force that's designed to deter. Julian Drucker, 5 News.
Before we came on air, I spoke to Steve White, who's chairman of the Police Federation, and former firearms officer Roger Gray. I began by asking Steve for his reaction to the announcement.
Well, I think considering the level of threat that we currently have in this country towards the public and police officers, then more firearms officers has got to be welcomed. But of course we have a largely unarmed service in the UK, and I think most people want to see that happen. But of course one of the things that we have to remember is that whilst we're going to see an uplift in firearms officers, they're not new officers. They're coming from other roles, and so it will leave a gap that will need to be filled on the streets.
A gap that needs to be filled, but how long will it take to get officers up to speed, trained up?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you're looking, in terms of the 1,500 uplift that the government want to achieve, it's going to take probably the best part of 2 years in order to get there. You can't just take an officer one day and then give them a firearm and then off they go. One of the things that we have to ensure as well is that standards need to be maintained. One of the reasons why, despite the number of firearms operations that we have in the UK, yet the number of times that firearms are actually discharged is so low is because of the quality of the training, and we need to make sure that that standard is maintained.
We're being told, though, that this is making us safe. I mean, will it actually deter attackers?
Well, to some degree, it must do. I don't know how we judge how effective this will be, but you know, we have to do something. And I think you've got to give the police force credit here for thinking laterally. When we look at the tactics which we've been seeing displayed in the media today to deal with, you know, the very congested London that I travelled through to get here, and then think about, you know, an emergency vehicle, just because it makes a lot of noise, isn't necessarily going to get through.
I'm thinking, though, obviously, in light of recent events, what we've seen in France, I mean, armed police didn't work there, did they?
Well, there is no panacea. There is no complete answer to this. But we have to do something. Now, how good is the something that's being done so far? And I think in relative terms, it is quite good. But what you need, the need is exponential. So you cannot find a complete answer, but you've just got to do the best you can. And I think at the moment, they're doing the best they can.
Steve, if I could turn to you now. Also, what about places outside London? I'm thinking other major cities and indeed rural towns. How well protected are they?
Well, it's a very good question, and of course, whilst traditionally London and the large cities have always been thought to be the target of terrorist activity, we've now seen, particularly in the stuff that's happened on the continent, that it's not necessarily going to be the capital. And we need to make sure that that capability is not just in London, that it is actually around the 43 forces that make up England and Wales and indeed Scotland and Northern Ireland. And that's going to be very challenging. One of the things that I did want to just pick up on is that firearms tactics, the increase in firearms officers is just part of the solution. The other thing we have to consider, and the Commissioner did talk about at the weekend, and that is about neighbourhood policing. And bizarrely what we're seeing now is some neighbourhood officers volunteering to become firearms officers, which then leaves the gap in neighbourhood policing even more vulnerable. And it's about preventing these attacks before they occur. It's all very well having the firearms officers, if you can corral them in the right place at the right time, to deal with the incident once it's happened. But what you want to do is to make sure it doesn't happen in the first place.
Roger, it's not all about looking tough, as we heard there, but it is quite intimidating seeing some of those face masks. I mean, is it all for show?
Where do you draw a line between intimidation and reassurance? We shouldn't underestimate the British public. They're very stoic about the things that they are confronted with. And Steve has a very good point with regard to how we tackle terrorism. And it isn't not all about confrontation. It's very, very largely about intelligence gathering. What's not visible can't be visible. Is the success that the intelligence services have had hitherto. They can't trumpet it without giving a lot away. But I would say the intelligence is almost primary ahead of the ability to respond, because it is far, far better to avoid an incident than to have to deal with it when it actually occurs.
Roger Gray and Steve White, thank you very much. Well, security at one of Britain's biggest army bases has been stepped up after a possible abduction attempt. Police were called to Aldershot Garrison in Hampshire this morning after reports of two men acting suspiciously. They say there's no evidence a crime has been committed, but it does come just 2 weeks after an alleged kidnap attempt at RAF Marham. We're always being told to switch our energy suppliers if we think we're getting a bad deal. But if you're on a prepaid meter, you're often charged more and can't change to a cheaper option. Well, from next April, those 4 million customers on a meter will be protected by a price cap brought in by the industry regulator Ofgem. Well, it says the move will protect the vulnerable, but critics say much more needs to be done. Andy Bell reports.
Danny Coakley pays for his gas and electricity by topping up his prepay meter. It's been a constant nagging worry, which has even changed the way he lives his life, especially when it turns cold.
Well, I don't want to go home in the evening because it's just going to cost me money. What else can I do? Where can I go where it's warm and I just do something rather than sitting at home and the money just being spent whilst I'm kind of sitting there doing nothing.
Now the energy regulator has said that prepay system will be capped, saving Danny and those like him an average £75 a year. But a recent investigation found about 70% of consumers are on the wrong tariff, paying too much. So why didn't the regulator order suppliers to tell their customers that?
I want to make it as easy as possible to inform consumers, and ultimately that'll get them the better deal.
But the responsibility would still lie with the consumers when you could be making the companies do much more.
We are making the companies do much more. We're requiring them not to confuse customers, and I'm saying very clearly if they treat customers badly, we will enforce it against them. I accept the majority of consumers still make a choice, but we make choices about everything we buy every day.
The so-called Big Six energy companies supply about 90% of consumers. Smaller firms say the measures announced today will just continue what they call a tale of two markets.
They'll first help the engaged side, the switching side of the market. That's not the side of the market that needs help. The disengaged, those that don't look to the market to see if there's a better deal, are the ones that need to be helped.
Not surprisingly, the big companies take a different view.
The customers that switched in June this year, 33% of them switched to small or medium-sized suppliers. So this market is changing, and it's changing in front of our eyes.
Smart meter displays are portable devices that can sit.
The plan is so-called smart meters will soon cut bills anyway, but until then the advice is get onto the website, and if you're paying too much, switch. Andy Belt, 5 News.
The father of a British woman being kept in Saudi Arabia against her will has been told he must help her return to the UK. 21-year-old Amina El Jeffrey, who grew up in Swansea, says her father has been keeping her in caged conditions because he disapproved of her adopting Western behaviours. The judge ordered Mr El Jeffrey to hand both her UK and Saudi passports back and to pay her travel costs. 300 air passengers and crew, including 24 from the UK, had to be rescued moments before an Emirates flight from India burst into flames at Dubai airport. The aircraft had crash-landed and thick black smoke could be seen billowing from the runway. A firefighter died whilst putting out the flames. Peter Lane reports.
Just moments after the passengers and crew evacuated, a huge explosion. The blast throwing what appears to be a section of wing into the air. The Emirates passenger planes stricken and billowing smoke, onlookers stunned. One described seeing the successful evacuation.
They did get off, we saw these people, and you know, the first few people were running, and I don't blame them, that thing was going to blow. And then they all got off safely, and then all the fire trucks were there was foam, they were doing flowing foam, water, and then the whole left side that it landed on, the side that it was on, it just went bang, you know.
Incredible scenes as passengers fled along the runway, the burning plane behind them. 300 people had been on board, 24 of them UK citizens. Remarkable that no one on the plane was seriously injured. But just a short while ago, the airline chairman held a press conference where he confirmed that one firefighter was killed tackling the blaze. It's thought the plane's landing gear malfunctioned, the crew responding in seconds. One former pilot has praised how the emergency was dealt with.
All airlines are, or the aircraft are predicated on the ability to offload all the passengers in under 90 seconds. And that's indeed around that sort of time that they managed to evacuate the passengers in this flight. So it was not just fortunate, it was part of their training to do so.
The plane's manufacturer, Boeing, says it has a team ready to travel to Dubai to assist the crash investigation. Whatever the cause, all those involved know there could have been a much bigger death toll. Peter Lane, 5 News.
Now, we all know the drill. Keep your teeth as clean and as healthy as possible. Brush twice a day. And, of course, remember to floss. But that could all be about to change. Researchers now think daily flossing may not be all that beneficial. An investigation by the Associated Press has looked back at more than 25 studies over the last decade and found no strong evidence that it actually works. And US health officials have admitted that not enough research has been done into flossing. Here, Public Health England says it's reviewing its guidance. But before we actually ditch that dental floss, let's speak to David Gray, who's a dentist. Good to have you with us, David. So it's all getting a bit confusing to floss or not to floss. What do you think?
I think flossing is great. Flossing, although these 25 studies have not been shown to prove that it prevents gum disease and prove that it prevents cavities in the teeth, Equally, it hasn't disproved it either. And we know that once these long-term studies come in, we'll have a much better idea. But until then, I would keep flossing.
OK, let's pause there. Let me just remind us why it's important to floss. When I go to the dentist, he always says, you're not flossing enough. I'm hands up, I'm guilty.
So your toothbrush can get the outside, the inside, and that biting surface of your teeth. But there are the surfaces where the teeth meet together, and your toothbrush can't get in there. Floss can get in between and remove the plaque, which can cause problems with your teeth and with your gums.
OK, well, let's just pause for a minute, because we have actually been asking people what they have been doing, their flossing habits, and seeing if that actually does make a difference to them. Here we are.
I think it definitely makes a difference, yeah. It means that you need to go back to the dentist a lot less.
Every time I go to the dentist, they tell me it's really good for me, and I guess it gets the bits out that you can't really get with a toothbrush, so yeah, I guess I should probably do it more often than I do.
Gums used to bleed and now floss, they don't bleed anymore.
OK, so there we have it. A lot of people think it does actually make a difference. But is it right for everybody to floss?
Not for everybody. It's across the board, everyone thinks that cleaning in between the teeth is good, and flossing is just one method of cleaning in between the teeth.
I was about to say that, because there are other methods, aren't there?
There are.
Talk us through some of those, and are they better?
So one of the main other methods is an interdental brush, these small little pipe cleaners which go in between your teeth. And they are the gold standard, but if your teeth are particularly tight together, they may not get in between your teeth. The best thing is to ask your dentist and see what they recommend is best for you.
Let's talk about technique, because there's a right and a wrong way to floss. Talk us through, how you do it properly.
So one of the problems which people have is this sort of soaring motion as they put it through the teeth, which can injure the gums. Get quite a long length, about 45 centimetres, wrap it in between your ring finger, take it between your thumb and your forefinger, and once you've popped it through the teeth, slide it down the tooth in front and the tooth behind, pop it back out, move away around all the way around the mouth, and you'll keep it nice and clean. OK, so just before we go, for the flossing sceptics out there, I mean, what is your advice? What should we be doing? My advice is that we're not going to know. We're not going to know for sure until these long-term studies have come out. But until that's the case, it's low risk, low cost, and if there's some benefit, it's worth doing it. I'll have to floss tonight, won't I? David, thank you very much.
Coming up on 5 News Tonight, the dangers of dodgy gadgets, a warning about the fire hazards in children's bedrooms. And meet the family who've just won £61 million. And that's not the only reason they consider themselves lucky. We'll see you after the break. Welcome back. You're watching 5 News Tonight. Gadgets that children keep in their bedrooms could be putting them at serious risk of a fire. A survey suggests many are leaving their laptop on the duvet or even sleeping with their phones charging beneath their pillow, which means they could overheat and become dangerous very quickly. Our health correspondent Catherine Jones reports.
OK, so the smoke alarm was blaring. I came out of the bedroom to see smoke coming from the boys' bedroom. So I immediately came in here and saw the Brandon's pillow was on fire.
Actual flames as well as smoke?
Actual flames, yeah.
A lucky escape for Dwayne Blanchard, who'd been alone in his house asleep when his stepson Brandon's pillow caught light.
After I'd put the fire out, I saw the devices actually sunk into the pillow where they'd melted.
Brandon had left his portable speaker on the pillow, plugged into the wrong charging cable.
I was very shocked and I didn't know it could happen.
I was angry at first, but that's natural instincts. And then we just warned him not what to use and what not to use and where to use it.
Like most kids, Brandon has a lot of gadgets. On average, a child's bedroom nowadays houses 10 different electrical devices. And a survey of 10 to 18-year-olds has found half of them have left a device charging on their bed. 2 out of 5 had charged a phone under their pillow at night, while a quarter had used a cheap, unbranded charger, which can be more liable to overheat. Brandon and his family have now changed their habits. The advice is to throw out any cheap chargers, to put charging devices on a hard surface, and to avoid leaving anything charging unattended or overnight.
Everything that needs charging, phones, tablets, MP3 players, speakers, they all get charged where I can see them. My partner as well, she turns all the plugs off at night. You can't have anything on overnight. So it's just better to be safe than sorry.
An electrical fire can start in the blink of an eye. And charging a device on a bed, under a pillow or using the wrong cable is an unnecessary risk that no one should be taking. Catherine Jones, 5 News.
Let's speak to Dominic Littlewood, who's a consumer journalist. Hi there, Dominic.
Hi, Danny.
There's no underestimating just how dangerous this can be.
Do you know what one of the biggest problems are? I mean, kids and adults, we all do. We leave our phones on charge. Fair enough, and that's never going to change. But it's the material that you're leaving it on. If it's something flammable like material, quilts or sheets or pillowcases, that's dangerous. You shouldn't really do that.
Because presumably that can overheat, and that's the real problem. That's when we get fires.
One of the biggest problems now is there's a lot of substandard phone chargers around. I brought 2 in. This one is genuine. And if you look at it, I bought the kitchen scale. Never used for cooking these, I tell you. But that's 45 grams.
Yep.
Feel the weight of that one.
Have a look.
And this is a good test for anybody at home. Yep. That one is 34 grams, so it's about 25% less.
Okay, so that does feel a lot less. And so which one's the real one?
Well, the reason the genuine ones are heavier is because they've got about 60 parts in them. Okay. They've got circuit boards in there which are 4.6 millimetres apart. On the fake ones, those circuit boards are about 1 millimetre apart, and they've got less than 30 parts in it. Those parts are the things that cut them out if they start to overheat. So they're cheap for a reason, they're dangerous, and there have been fires, there's been people got electric shocks.
So that's not helping either. I mean, what is the safest way then to charge our gadgets? I mean, I do it too. I mean, most of us, charge our phones overnight and things like that, our laptops, that sort of thing.
That's never going to stop. I do it. I leave my phone charging overnight. Make sure you're using the genuine plug, because although they are more expensive, these things don't burn out very often. So get the genuine one and use it all the time. These substandard ones are dangerous. Ideally, when your phone's reached 100%, unplug it, because if you leave it charged in, it will actually deplete the battery anyhow. But if you forget to do that, if you're using the genuine charger, don't have it on something flammable. Put it on something like a saucer. That's ideal. Okay. Yeah. And if you really can be dedicated, and not many people will be, charge it before you go to bed, and then unplug it when you go to bed. I
suppose in an ideal world. I mean, would you even go a step further? Would you go? Well, should we be unplugging things? I mean, like you said, before bed and that sort of thing. But should we go around just unplugging things anyway?
It depends what they are. I mean, certainly certain things you definitely should. If your children have got fairy lights, which are quite common because parents like to have a little bit of illumination in the room, ideally make sure they're LED. Don't have the 240 volt ones, because they get hot, and every time a bulb breaks, the next bulb has more current going through it, so that gets even hotter. So really, 240 volt LED lights, bin them. Don't put them on your Christmas tree, whatever happens. LEDs are okay. If the kid's not off, nip in the room, unplug it. If the kids have got all their chargers in, once they're asleep, the parents should unplug them as well. It's much safer.
Dominic, great to have your thoughts and some safety tips there for everybody.
Thanks, Danny.
Andy Murray has been chosen as the flag bearer for Team GB at Friday's Olympic opening ceremony. The Wimbledon champion, who also won gold at London 2012, will lead out the 366 athletes representing Great Britain and Northern Ireland in Rio. Well, among the athletes who will be there alongside Team GB and the 205 other competing nations are a unique and special group, refugees whose journeys to Rio have been more extraordinary than most. Jessica Omery reports.
They don't share a flag or even a language, but the Olympics are bringing this group of athletes together. For the first time, this is a team of competitors, not representing a country. Instead, they're representing the millions of refugees around the world.
We want to do our best to show everyone that we can do everything we can for being good athletes and good people, not only in sport.
Just last year, 18-year-old Yusra Mardini was swimming for her life. She'd fled Syria with her family and made the treacherous crossing in a dinghy from Turkey to Greece. They ran into danger. Yusra was forced to jump into the water, where for the next 3 hours, the teenager helped guide the boat with 20 people on board to safety. Next week, she'll be swimming in the 100-meter freestyle in Rio.
I'll be honored, I'll be proud, I'll be happy. I'll have the pain in my stomach, because this is a great feeling. And of course, I'm gonna think of everyone who supported me.
The first ever Olympic refugee team is made up of 10 athletes. They've all had to leave their home countries to escape war or poverty. They'll compete in athletics, swimming and judo. And at Friday's opening ceremony, they'll enter the stadium in front of hosts Brazil, carrying the Olympic flag.
whereby now we are living whereby we have tear of sorrow, and now we are going to have tear of joy, whereby this one, it will change our life and it will be a good achievement in our life.
Medals and podium finishes will be a bonus. For these competitors, the true glory is that they're taking part at all. Jessica Omery, 5 News.
Exactly a week ago today, 53-year-old Sonia Davis from Monmouthshire, had just come out of cancer surgery in America. Well, learning the tumour had been removed, she called her daughter, telling her to buy a lottery ticket as she was feeling lucky. Well, lucky is an understatement. Minnie Stevenson has been to meet the £61 million jackpot winners.
Keeping it very much in the family. Introducing the new millionaires from Monmouthshire in South Wales. Meet the parents, Keith and Sonia, their daughters, Courtney and Stephanie, plus Stephanie's boyfriend, Steve. Collectively, they are now £61 million richer, thanks to a family syndicate win on the Euro Millions. So once the nerves and the bubbles had settled, the Davies told me what they did when they found out the news.
Now, is it true that when you'd won, somebody took a selfie with the ticket just to make sure that you didn't lose it? Because that's what I would do. Tell us a bit about that.
We never take selfies. We don't take selfies,
right.
but yeah, we did. It was a bit of a spare moment, really. Once we realised the value of that piece of paper, we didn't want to lose it, and it became a reality that we could lose it. So we needed some evidence that we did have it.
And they told me they are feeling beyond lucky. Only 2 days before, their mum Sonia had been told by doctors her life had been saved after having throat cancer surgery. In her words, she was onto a winning streak and so insisted the family bought tickets for a syndicate.
After I had my operation last week, I felt that I was the luckiest woman in the world. You know, I didn't think life could. Well, it can't really get better than that. But as you say, to suddenly find that you've won the lottery as well, and just what it can mean to all of us and those around us, you just can't believe it.
No, we felt we would already run the lottery, so to win it twice is amazing.
So now they are £61 million richer as a family and £12 million richer each. First on the winnings wish list is, wait for it, an electric toothbrush.
I thought, why not treat yourself? So I found one online and it was actually half price as well, so I'm still saving money.
The Davies family, proof that you can be both modest and millionaires. Minnie Stevenson, 5 News.
Good for them. That's all from us. Sean Welby has the weather next, and Dominic has updates throughout the evening from all the team. Thanks very much for watching. Good night.